Look at this. I achieved 62.6 mpg in this Prelude.
Welcome back, I'm Tedward, and today's my final day living with the 2026 Honda Prelude. And ever since I drove this out in the beautiful mountain roads of California, I knew I needed to know what it would be like to actually live with. Now, the internet has been incredibly vocal about what they think it is and isn't and should be and all of those things, but I review cars. I'm here to actually experience them and let you know what happened along the way. And this Honda Prelude has surprised me in some ways, let me down in others, and I'm here to tell you about all of my experiences with this car. Because to a lot of people, this is a mistake. They think the Prelude should be a stick shift. They think that it should have a Type R engine. They think that it should be based on its own chassis and not related to the Civic. And I genuinely think everybody's concerns with the Prelude are valid to a degree. However, I do think that everyone needs to go out and drive one to figure out maybe this car is for you. And a sporty hybrid is a very niche market. This doesn't really compete with a Mustang, a BRZ, a Miata. It doesn't even really compete with the Type R. This is a really interesting package, and I think it needs to be celebrated whether or not it's called a Prelude. Most of the time when you approach the car, the door handles will be pushed out for you, but in a lot of other situations, you do need to use your left hand only because you got to put your thumb here and pop it out. What I love about these door handles is they are mechanical. That is a very good thing. Let's start under the hood. Probably one of the most controversial things about this Prelude is its powertrain, because instead of getting the K20C1 from the FL5 Type R, they put the hybrid powertrain that we would find in a Civic hybrid, an Accord hybrid, a CR-V hybrid. It makes 200 horsepower, 232 pound-feet of torque. However, even though this, only goes 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds, that is fast enough for most of the daily commuting, and that torque is almost always on tap. So it's really easy to zip your way through some traffic as long as you're not zipping your way through traffic at 90. But what makes this Prelude special, other than the fact that it looks like a glider when you look at the side profile and it's a two-door, it's the suspension, the brakes, the tires. This gets the suspension from the FL5 Type R. That is important, and it does make a difference. It's a lot softer than that in the Civic Type R, but then again, when the Type R came out, everyone said it was too stiff. The Integra Type S went a step further, softening that a little bit, making it more palatable for daily driving, and this Prelude goes a step further. In fact, comfort mode in this is actually too soft. I believe that there are undulations where you can bottom out these struts. You've got to be aware of the terrain you're driving on when you're in this Prelude, because the modes actually matter. That is not always the case in a lot of cars. And it also gets the brakes from the FL5 Type R, and instead of being painted in red, they are blue. They say Prelude and Brembo on them, and we got 19-inch wheels all around, 235 section tires on these Continental Extreme Contact 02s. They are outrageously sticky, and that's, I think, the thing about this car that you've got to drive to believe it. It is very capable in a corner. It is staggeringly fast in a corner. So when everybody tells me, oh, the Prelude, it's a hybrid and it's slow, I think the only people who are slow in a Prelude are those who don't know how to take a corner. No offense. I'm not trying to goad you into driving fast. But what I am saying is this is really nimble, and it's incredible what it can do around a corner. And I think even if the car is not for you, that cannot be overlooked. It is extremely capable dynamically. Around back, we've got a pretty sleek design. This has grown on me a lot. I do remember when this car first came out, people were like, wow, a two-door Prius. And they're not totally wrong, but this is starting to look like its own style to me now. It's also quite wide. I had this sitting in my driveway, parked next to my Type R, and I was impressed with how wide this is. I mean, it is a Civic platform, so that shouldn't be too surprising. And then our liftback, not hatchback, we've got Honda across here, written out, not the logo. Prelude down here in its interesting script. This is vast. This is incredibly practical as a two-door liftback. However, it is not practical as a four-seat liftback. This rear seat is dismal. It is quite small, and that is the seat. That's the seat back for that side of the passenger. I mean, it's really little, but folding them down turns this platform into something entirely more usable. You can fit pretty much anything in here. In fact, I usually use my road bike as a test. I don't want to take a wheel off of that road bike. So when I can fit my road bike fully assembled into a car, I'm usually pretty impressed. And I can do that in this. It is difficult to get it out though, because when I go to pull it out, that front wheel typically gets a little hung up on that seat corner right there. Not my favorite. So easy in, tricky out. You'll make do if this is the car you want. Down here, no spare tire. Quite the bummer, but not really any space down here to write home about either. So if you need to take 4 people, 5 people in your car, well, you are going to be limited to other vehicles. But if you're looking at a 2-door, practicality and people moving is likely not your entire game. Let's take a quick peek here, because this is actually important. It's not about what it says, it's about what it doesn't say. This does not say premium fuel. No, you do get a filler cap, not the capless nozzle. No, you can run this on regular. This runs on 87, which makes this even more appealing to the frugal person who wants to commute to work and have fun on the off-ramp on the way, because I have been getting incredible fuel economy out of this thing. It's rated for up to 44, 41 combined, I believe, city and highway. Hybrids typically do better in the city because you're not fighting air and you're also probably gaining lots of energy every time you lift or stop. That's fantastic. But I have been able to achieve in the city, driving on these back roads 30 miles at a time, well over 50 miles per gallon. I'm not joking. Well over 50 miles per gallon. I got 60 miles per gallon going to Lars Anderson Auto Museum today.
I just drove about 25 miles in back roads to the Lars Anderson Auto Museum, and look at this. I achieved 62.6 mpg in this Prelude. That is maybe not the point of the Prelude, but it is remarkably good fuel economy. And it's important to know that hybrids can do exceptional things with the fuel you've given it on non-highways, on back roads. And 62.6 is no joke. Half of that was with AC on, and then I rolled the windows down.
There are things that bother me about this car. These door handles sometimes are one of those things. And let's get out on the road and we'll talk about what it has been like actually living with the Prelude. What are you dinging about? Oh, you're mad because I put those lights on. That's fine. It's okay, man. All right, interior. It's very Civic in here. It is. And that's not a bad thing. The Civic has a great layout. The only difference is down here, you've got the old sort of NSX style, or I guess the Honda Pilot. A lot of Hondas have this. I always look at this and see NSX, which to some is a very good thing. To me, I prefer a regular stick, but it does open this up quite a bit. And then you have an interesting button over here, S+, which turns these paddles from regen paddles into actual like shifters. Now there's no transmission to write home about here because, well, look, we've explained this powertrain quite a few times over the years, but there is actually no transmission to speak of. When we're starting up, we got to look at those running lights in the dashboard, in the LCD dashboard. So let's start it up. The headlights turn on. Of course, nothing really happens. It's an EV mode, so you don't really get a raucous startup if it doesn't need to. When you turn it off, we'll wait for all the beeps and the beeps and the beeps. Pretend we got out. Now it shows us the rear of the car. So kind of a cute little thing they did with the animations there. Setting off. If you're light on the throttle, all you'll hear is the hum of the EV warning to let pedestrians know that they shall not pass. The steering is ultra light. These skid marks are not from me. I do not defecate where I masticate. I'm gonna go full on the throttle. Not gonna win any drag races. But here's the thing, I hate to tell you, you weren't gonna win any drag races in the old Prelude either. I've driven every generation of Prelude. In fact, I've filmed every generation of Prelude thanks to Honda's Heritage Fleet, which was a really cool opportunity to drive everything from the 1970s up to today. None of those cars were fast. They weren't. They were good cars, but they were not fast cars. And I think that's really important to recognize. If anything, being a little slow is Prelude heritage. Gas is back over $4 a gallon right now for regular, so to say it's not important is a little silly. All right, you probably start to notice the road noise. This is a loud cabin. It really is. Hondas are a little notorious for this. The Prelude, it's a weird car because it is supposed to be a little more luxurious than other cars. If you look in the historical terms of a Prelude, they were more innovative. They had nicer features. They had nicer interiors. I think if you get into a Gen 4 Prelude, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It feels like no other Honda you've ever sat in. It's incredible. And this car could do with a little more insulation, because I think if it doesn't quite have a clear buyer in mind, which is where we're maybe getting into that territory in the comment section of like, who is this for? I'm sure we've asked this question before. If this had more luxury chops than maybe a Civic Sport Touring, oh, we've got an ambulance behind us that we're going to move over for in a little bit. Maybe, just maybe, this would have a slightly more clear raison d'être, a reason to be. Let's see, which way are they coming? They're coming my way, so we're gonna take a back seat to the ambulance early. You do your thing, man. I will say, you do feel everything in the road. And this is where the Prelude gets a little confusing to me. Because on the one hand, when I feel like the interior noise on the highway is loud and I feel everything in the road, I think, well, it's a sports car. That's fine. But on the other hand, the damping and the suspension can go so soft and supple, and the way this behaves is really chill and relaxed unless you want to whip it around. Then I'm thinking, it's a GT car, it should be a little more luxurious and it should have more sound insulation. I don't know which angle to play it on here, and it does split that difference. And does it need to choose a side? I don't know, but I have had moments in my head where I'm thinking, I wish it was more this or I wish it was more that. But sometimes those contradict each other. One thing I can say for certain, these seats are fantastic. Honda has done such a great job of creating pretty great seats without adjustability. I mean, these are all manual controls, which again, that's another thing where I'm thinking, well, isn't this kind of luxurious? And you're paying good money. You're paying over $40,000 for it. Shouldn't it have electronic seats? I guess not, but you get super low in them. I've got the view of a Cayman out of this thing, and the lumbar, the side supports, everything just makes sense. It's kind of like when you get a really great static suspension and it's just perfect the way it is. The brakes are incredible, but they're probably overkill for this car. Because remember, a big brake kit, a bigger brake, isn't just about stopping power. Pretty much any brake is going to lock up a tire. I certainly hope so. But it's about repeated stops. It's about stopping over and over again from speed. And because this doesn't have that much power, it's not going to be gaining that much speed. So that is cool that it's got these big brakes, and they certainly look great and you're paying for them. But I don't know that these brakes were as necessary as the suspension was. But while we're stuck behind traffic, let's talk infotainment. This now has the Google built-in setup, which is faster than my Civic Type R's older setup. However, yes, it has Apple CarPlay. The problem is Apple CarPlay has a very strange glitch in the Prelude, and I'm not the only one who's experienced this. I actually corroborated this with the Topher Drives, my buddy Chris Brower. I was trying to receive a text message, so I get a text message, I hit it. Normally, Siri reads that to me, and she tells me what the text message says. Then she asks if I'd like to reply, and I reply, and the text message is sent. However, when I click on the text message, it just pops up and reads me nothing. It's silent. And then if I go to send a text message, it doesn't take my dictation. It does not do that. So I've not been able to send or receive texts via CarPlay in my week with this Prelude. Now, if anybody understands why that is, please let me know. I promise you it is not my phone. I promise you we've experienced this in another Prelude with another driver with another phone. And I promise you that when I plug my phone into another car, my Honda Civic Type R, it works. This is what this Prelude does really well. It stays super locked down in the corners, and it's really confidence inspiring. You can drive this fast. I mean, that's where this comes alive. That is some impressive stuff. That is some genuinely impressive stuff from Honda. And I just feel like everything is forgiven when you get behind the wheel of this in a corner. Trail brake into this. Rear end stays locked down. Super sharp nose. I know this might sound crazy. I'm more confident, I think, flogging this than my Type R. The Type R is a lot more tail happy, and when the tires are cold in my Type R, it can be a little nerve-wracking. This, not at all. Come out wide because it'll decrease a little bit up here. But that's the thing, it lets you get on power pretty early. And then, once you've had your fun, you go back to the meat grinder that is commuting to and fro your place of employment. But the Prelude makes it fun. The Prelude gives you that little reprieve from the monotony, from the incessant poor driving of our peers out on the public roads that we have to share all day. But once in a while, you want to be able to enjoy your car. You want to be able to feel a lateral G. You want to be able to drive, like really drive. What I do know is that if you're looking for a luxury car, this is not it. And if you're looking for a pure sports car, this is also not it. This Prelude, it doesn't really fit into any buckets. I don't know that I can call it a sports car, though it's sporty. I don't know that I can call it a luxury car, though it has a pretty luxurious suspension. It doesn't need to, though. And I'm kind of thankful that there's a car out here right now that doesn't seem to compete with any other thing. I mean, it's its own category. To call it a two-door Civic is to kind of miss the point, although it's not far off based on its chassis, but it is such an interesting blend of a whole bunch of things. You've got Type R suspension, Type R brakes, Civic hybrid powertrain. I don't know, man. I mean, I understand why people are a little confused by it, but every time I drive it, I'm pretty happy. I really like this car. I really like going to bat for this car just because it is weird. And isn't it funny that car enthusiasts are obsessed with weird cars that didn't quite fit a bucket? Today, we have shows like Radwood. You go to Cars and Coffee, and I see people take pictures of the oddball cars constantly, and they say, remember these? History typically looks fondly on some of the oddball cars, especially if they have redeeming features. And this car has two redeeming features. One is its handling. It's just staggering what this does in a corner. It is so much fun, and I really enjoy it. We're in comfort mode. Let's see how this does in comfort mode. A lot of body roll. Oh, that is a different experience. Luckily, this is paved well, so we didn't have any big bounces. And two, for what it is and what it does, it gets pretty phenomenal fuel economy. And I'm not just talking about what the EPA fuel economy says. I mean, I have proven to myself that I'm able to achieve almost 60 miles per gallon average back and forth to the museum, which I go to all the time. So that's pretty impressive. They're not going to build a ton of these. They're weird. They're cool. Look, like, you're already in or out. I feel like there's very few people on the fence. And those of you who are on the fence, all I do is implore you to drive one. And if you are someone who likes dynamic handling, I think this car will appeal to you, especially if you're not trying to spend $397, $399 on regular 87 gasoline, because, oh, good Lord, what a frustrating timeline we're in, huh? But yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say. That's it. My week with the Prelude was pretty good. I enjoyed it. Are there things it can do better? Sure. That's fine. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one. Prelude has one of the best seating positions in the industry right now. It feels more Porsche than Honda, frankly. And I really like the way you can look out over the nose. The nose drops really fast, and then you've got the two sides here and here that pop up just a little bit that give you the idea of where those wheels are. So if you need to hit the apex of a corner, you don't have to question where your tires are. You know exactly where they are. Right over the curb. But torture-tested Honda, surviving the day. So we're in GT mode right now, and sometimes, ooh, look at this. Oh, big one. See, that's what I mean. This car sometimes can't handle big undulations in the softer settings. And while it's really nice to have a soft car because that feels luxurious, it feels like it wants to just compress and bottom out a strut. And you need to be aware not to leave it in too soft of a setting, because if you do, you're going to have a bad time. Oh, it would be so nice if people would wave to you when you, like, give them something, but, you know, common courtesy in Massachusetts, not so common there, is it?